We're doing it live. We're doing it live. Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning. That's Nancy Pelosi. All right. So Donald Trump has come out. He's given his full support to the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile blackmail network. He is now 100% on board with maintaining the blackmail network, the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile blackmail network. Donald Trump has declared his total and complete support for that operation. It is definitely he's basically saying that there will be no investigation into that. Everyone who participated in the crimes is safe, and that we should all just shut up. Just shut up. And your memory is the problem. See, the problem when you're a pedophile like Donald Trump is, everyone's memory, that's the problem. See, why do you have a memory? See, the problem the problem becomes that you have a memory. See, that's the problem. The problem is that you remember things. That's the problem of all criminals. The basic problem of a criminal is that everybody else has a memory. You see, they can remember things. This becomes the problem. And then now the problem becomes everybody's memory. How do you wipe out their memory? How do you override their memory? How do you get around their memory? Well, that's Donald Trump's problem now. And that's really been the problem of the US government for a really long time, now that I think about it, because they're always doing this. They're always doing this. They're always finding ways to get around what you remember happening, like on 9/11. Is Donald Trump doing anything about the people, both in the CIA and the NSA and at Mossad, that were involved in 9/11? No, he's not doing anything about that. Because why? There's no memory. There's no memory of anything. Remember? It's just there's no memory. This really boils down the problem of being an American. Not an American, but a US person. And this gets to my next point, is that as the Church of America, never has there been a greater need for the Church of America than there is now. The Church of America is an organization which is designed to become the orthodox philosophy, which determines who is an American and who isn't, and what we believe as Americans. Right? Donald Trump is not an American, actually, if you think about it. He's a U.S. citizen, and that's a difference. There's a difference between a U.S. citizen and American. Americans are the descendants of the Enlightenment age, which is the worship of the light of God, called in the New Testament Jesus Christ, called in the Old Testament the Word, the Logos, the Word, actually called the Logos in the New too, but called the Word of God, the Logos, called in Athens the Logos, called in Athens the Logos. And that's where the Enlightenment age really starts, is in Athens. And so Athens is the keystone of the Enlightenment age. And what happened in the Enlightenment age is that people in Europe were reading Plato and Aristotle and Anaxagoras and Pythagoras and Heraclitus, and they found out about this thing called the Logos and how this was really the origin of everything. So Logos is the reasoning behind the universe. The reasoning behind the universe is called the Logos, and it's also the ruler of your soul. As the Church of America, we are going to establish our own political system and our own economic system, because we cannot depend on the U.S. The U.S. is a pedophile network. That's over. You can't be run by a pedophile network. So there's no way. You have to draw a line in the sand. There's no way you can be ruled by a pedophile network, and it's not going away. If you can't beat it with Donald Trump, which was actually kind of a dumb idea to think you could in the beginning, because he was part of it. He was part of it from the beginning. So how do we overcome that? We just we form something else and replace the existing order with a new thing, which is an old thing called the Logos, which is our church. Actually, the Church of America, you can trace it back to, if you look at in Christianity, you can trace it back to writers such as an Origen. His name was Origen. He wrote about the Logos. He wrote about Jesus Christ is the Logos. And before him, you had Philo-Judaeus. And Philo-Judaeus he lived around the time of the Roman rule of Judea, and he was a philosopher, and he wrote extensively about the Logos. So these were Jewish philosophers like Philo-Judaeus and a Christian philosopher like Origen, and they will tell you about the Logos. So, but the idea behind the Church of America is that we're going to have a political class, and so if you believe in Americanism, you believe in the ideals of Americanism, then you can become a political member of the political class of America, or you can be part of the economic system, because we're not going to have the U.S. We're going to replace the U.S. The U.S. is basically, the U.S. has a cult. It's a pedophile cult, right? And so I don't want to have anything to do with that. Everybody in the U.S. So here's the problem. Everybody in the federal government right now works for a pedophile cult. Everybody at the Pentagon and all the servicemen who joined up thinking, oh, this will be great. Trump's in there now. This will be great. No, it's not great, because Trump has sided with the pedophile cult. So now you are taking orders from a pedophile cult. You see, so you're not winning. This is not winning. So we're replacing that with the Church of America. See, the Church of America is based on Americanism, the ideals of the founding fathers, and the ideology that came out of Athens and came through Europe a long time. It's the perfect religion, because it's perfect, because there's nothing more perfect than the Logos. It's the reasoning of the universe. The Logos is the reasoning of the universe. That's why you have words like biology, the logos of life, biological life, biologos, or psychology, the reasoning of the mind, what it was supposed to be. It turned into a weird cult too. But anyway, so with the Church of America, the church will then determine who is able to be, for instance, a political leader, right? You can't be a political leader in the church if you're in the Church of America and the government's run by the Church of America. You can't be a political leader if you do not believe in the American ideals of the founding fathers and of the doctrine which came out of Athens. You're just not part of it. So Trump wouldn't be part of it, because Trump's not really an American. He doesn't really believe in the ideals of the founding fathers. He's just a U.S. person. He's a U.S. citizen. And he believes in pedophile rings and Zionism and all this other weird shit. It has nothing to do with America, right? It has nothing to do with America. The Church of America is not a Zionist organization. Our origin is Athens. So we need to have a network of political people that run sections of the society, right? So you have just like you have a government right now, except for, instead of submitting to a Zionist pedophile network, they'll submit to the Church of America. That's the big difference. Instead of submitting to Jeffrey Epstein and a bunch of Jewish blackmail videos with Donald Trump in there and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and all these other fucking weirdos, it's going to be the Church of America, and you will have to submit to that. That's the only real change, and it's a big change. It's a change that has to happen. You cannot have a government run by pedophiles. Can't have a government run by pedophiles. So that means Donald Trump is out. And because Donald Trump has made it clear that he supports the pedophile network. He says there's not going to be any arrests. We're not going after any of these people. Case closed. We're hiding everything. The public's not going to see anything. We're just going to hide it all. And Pam Bondi is going to help do that. And everyone else can just go to hell, because you're not part of my little cult, he says. Donald Trump says, you're not part of my little pedophile cult that rapes kids, that literally traffics and rapes children. And and it's not just like, oh, they're 16. No. They're little kids. So that's Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump. You can't, I know you don't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe it either, but that's him. And so that's him. That's Pam Bondi. That's the U.S. government, which means that's the U.S. military, which means that's the FBI, which means that's the CIA. Until this is gone, that's who they are, because they've put all of their chips in that basket. They put all of their chips in that ugly, stinking, rotten, Zionist pedophile basket. And that's who they are. They're saying, this is who we are. This is who we are. We don't care if you don't like it. Okay, you don't care right now, but we need to make sure you care. We need to make sure that you end up regretting everything that you've decided to do. So the way to do that, as far as I can tell, someone want to give me a better idea? The way that I'm doing that is I'm saying we're forming a thing called a Church of America. And I'm saying this based on my research of how America was formed, and that not putting a philosophical order in place as an orthodox philosophical order opened the door to this other garbage, which we have now. Because see, other governments don't have this. Only the ones that came out of this post-Enlightenment period of the rise of the US government in Washington, D.C., which was established by the Jesuits. So only that order, which now controls London and now controls Berlin and now controls Brussels and is in Switzerland, like, because it took over Europe, now we're all under that. Okay, China's not under that. Russians aren't under that. They were under that when the US overthrew the Tsar, because see, when they were under the Tsar, they had the Russian Orthodox Church, and the Russian Orthodox Church chose the leadership under the monarchical system. Now, we don't necessarily have to have a monarchy. I don't know that that's even a good system because it failed, right? The monarchy failed. So was that a good system? Not necessarily. But whoever is going to be the leaders of the government are going to have to get the approval of a religious order, a philosophical order that holds them to a certain standard. And right now, that's me. Right now, that's me. I'm the only one, because I'm the only one right now who is in the Church of America or supporting the Church of America. I'm just supporting the Church of America. If everybody supports the Church of America, then it can form into an organization which actually has power to dictate terms over the government. Because right now you have no power to do that. And so you need an organ, and it's not going to be any of these stupid Zionist churches. They're not going to be able to do it, because they're all, you got to understand, every single one of these Zionist churches, and they're all over the place. It's not just the White House. My mother went to a church when she was alive, and she went to this church, and it was one of these Zionist churches, and it was run by, originally it was run by a guy that was being blackmailed by the Anti-Defamation League, and then they got rid of him, and they put in this other creep, and he runs it now. And it's all, see, that's what I'm saying. That's how deep this thing is. And that all goes back to the White House, which all goes back to Jeffrey Epstein. See, they're in your churches. They're in your churches. They're in your government. They're all over the place. You've got to get them out. And you can't, because you've got a separation of church and state. And people think that's good because they're in the pedo net. They're under the Zionist Mossad pedo network. So they think it's good that there's no, we're glad that the government doesn't run by a church. No, you're wrong, because look at Russia. Okay, they have a church, and then the government submits to the ideology of the church, and they have a normal civilization with nice cities that aren't piles of trash like America. See, they still have problems, and they still have corruption in government, but there's at least some kind of a standard being set by the people in the government that they're supposed to adhere to these ideas. And see, as this thing becomes more powerful, that makes the civilization better. You see, it doesn't make it worse, it makes it better. Then you could not have a worse civilization than the US government. Like, how could you have a worse? It's run by pedophiles. How could there be a worse civilization? Go look at all the media. Look at all the garbage in the media. Look at the toilet culture, which is America. That's all emanating out of Donald Trump. It's all emanating out of Donald Trump and his pedophile network, the Zionist pedophile network. It's all emanating out of there. And that doesn't mean that the Roman Catholics aren't in on it too, because they are. Because look at Rubio and all. There's this whole section of it that's Roman Catholic, and You've got Joe Biden and you've got Nancy Pelosi and all this stuff. They're all in that thing with the pedo ring. It's like one big giant pile of shit. So all that needs to be replaced with a Church of America. Church of America will be the governing philosophy. Church of America will be the political philosophy. Church of America will be the economic system. You think capitalism is a great you think capitalism as we know it has been this great success? Well, then why is America ruined? Why are all the jobs go? Well, look, Irvine, California. Why are they selling off all this land? Why is the Irvine company just selling everything off to foreigners from China or all over the world to come here, and from India and Pakistan or wherever they come from, and just selling all this land to these people? And well, what does that have to do with America? Nothing. See what I mean? It's just it's capitalism. We're just sell everything off to everybody, whoever the highest bidder is. Okay, that's what you want? That's not what I want. So you know what I mean? Who runs all these corporations? Who's like, this is, you look at Orange County, because I look at California. Okay, I look at Los Angeles the way it was in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Okay. And you'd have like white guys out there doing all the construction jobs and building all the roads, and you know what I mean? Getting paid good for it, being able to buy a house. Now it's all slave labor working for super rich people that aren't even Americans. They're from some other place. They don't give a shit about America. They don't even know what it is. They just turn on the net. They like Netflix. They want to watch shows about perversion or whatever. I mean, that's the culture. It could not be any worse or any more stupid. And the other countries aren't necessarily doing that. Unfortunately, the European countries are the ones and that's why we've lost all of our territory. And we've been losing territory. Although we gained territory for a short time with the rise of America in North America, where the white race actually came in, expanded through all this territory. That was like a nice little bump, right? But you look at, we've lost all the East, because you had Alexander, right? He was over in Persia, he was over in Egypt, he was in Judea, he was in Syria, we had Anatolia, we had all that Caucasus region, and all of that territory of which is now Muslim. We lost all that. And then we had this kind of a big gain over in the West, but then the same crooks came in and established Washington, D.C. And now, and then they subverted the whole thing, so that even though we had a little population boom, like in the 40s, but that all got wiped out pretty quick, right? And now we're losing that area, and we lost South Africa, we're losing Australia, we're losing Europe, we've lost London, we're losing everything because of these fucking criminals. We're losing everything all over the world. We're losing Canada. And it's it's like this little cult that's in charge of it, and they just destroy everything. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This cannot be allowed to happen. You cannot continue with these people. Donald Trump isn't going to fix that. He's part of it. He's objectively said, I'm part of the group that supports the pedophile network. That's what he's saying right now. I just watched his little truth tweet. He's saying, I support the pedo network. That's what he says. I support Alan Dershowitz, and I support PragerU. You understand, Prager University, that's the pedophile network. Alan Dershowitz, that's the pedophile network. Dennis Prager's the pedophile network. All these Mossad agents, that's the pedophile network. Harvard University, that's the pedophile network. Okay, that's Lex Wexner. That's the one that sponsored Jeffrey Epstein. That's Jeffrey Epstein's one client, Les Wexner, the guy that buys him all the stuff. Right? That's the pedophile. That's Harvard University. That's who Donald Trump's arresting people because they're being anti-Semitic. Okay, so all this has to be ended. Like this is Donald Trump has declared war on the American people on behalf of a pedophile network. And all of his big talk is just part of his confidence game. He's a con art. He's a blackmailed con artist, blackmailed by a pedophile ring. That's who Donald Trump is. He's a con artist and he's blackmailed by a pedophile ring. So if you think that's going to work out good, you're wrong. So anyway, support the Church of America. That's my plan. That's what I'm saying. Have a good afternoon.